The sun is out, a new day here in Miami Gardens. Off and running on this Breeders' Cup Friday here with all of you at Gulfstream Park West. Ron Nicoletti, the maestro, Jason Blewett alongside, and it's good to have you with us. A happy Breeders' Cup weekend to everybody, and this will be a long day, but a good one no matter where you're playing the horses.
And the key word here today, besides it being Breeders' Cup Day, is carryovers.
Yes.
Lots of them.
Yeah, carryover central, I think, is fitting for Gulfstream Park West today. We'll do a little housekeeping in a few moments, but again, we certainly have our rooting interests, and there's still some horses from my time in New York that I'm very fond of, and there's a number, nearly a handful of horses who we got to know quite well throughout the year leading up to the Breeders' Cup, whether it be GPW or across town at Gulfstream Park. And one of them, in fact, I'd say the most famous, is Gunnevera, who really was a feel-good story throughout the winter into the Triple Crown. And this is a look at Gunnevera just jogging a light jog on the Del Mar main track yesterday for Antonio Sano.
Got his head bowed. Looks like he's enjoying the West Coast there. So he looks pretty nice. And you can see how he filled out. And Gunnevera, of course, running in the Classic tomorrow evening.
And this seems and certainly appears like one of the deepest Breeders' Cup Classics in recent times. In fact, just off the top of my head, I will call this the deepest BC Classic field since, well, 2007, when you had that unbelievably talented three-year-old crop in that race that included Street Sense, Curlin, Hardspun, and Any Given Saturday. I mean, the matchup stands the older horses, of course. Gunnevera is going to have to run the race of his life to even make a dent in the top 3 or 4, let alone win the race. But we think he can hit the board, if not do a little better. But it really is about the older horses going in, mainly Horse of the Year, Ronnie, being on the line between Arrogate and Gunrunner.
Yeah, Arrogate and Gunrunner, and what a great race it is. And you're going back to Gunnevera, a feel-good story, because our buddy Edgar Zayas will be in the saddle riding in his first Breeders' Cup race. So sure have a good rooting interest here if you're from South Florida with Gunnevera.
Breeders' Cup debut as well for trainer Antonio Sano's. Had a heck of a week here at Gulfstream West. Maybe some of those winning vibes and just sharp ways of the barn recently will transfer out. They certainly hope it does, out to the West Coast in sunny Del Mar. And Edgar Zayas, no mounts today at GPW. And if you're wondering where Tyler Gaffalione is, he's got one Breeders' Cup mount today. He's riding in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Fillies today out there. I don't think he's got a mount in the distaff.
No, he doesn't. No, he's got a mount in the last race on Saturday. I know.
The last.
Well, it's not a Breeders' Cup race.
Last race today.
Oh, today. That's
today.
Right. That's
and then he's riding at the Big A. A lot of traveling for Tyler. I mean, it's good to be in your early 20s, but again, a couple of mounts out at Del Mar a bit later in the afternoon. Then he's riding Saturday. He's got a full plate of mounts on Saturday's card up at the Big A, and of course they're having their opening day, a long 6-month stint at the Big A in South Ozone Park, and then it's back to Florida for Tyler and Edgar on Sunday afternoon. So let's get the housekeeping out of the way. And in regards to GPW playing its role as carryover central today, it begins in earnest with the field of 7 and that opening super high 5 on the program of more than $2,500. No early carryover in the pick 5, or I should say there's no carryover in the early pick 5. There never is one. We can't have a carryover in the early 5, and then that builds like it normally does, Ronnie, into the 5th race and the opening leg of the pick 6.
Yeah, the pick 6, the Rainbow 6, starting in race number 5 with a 10-race card, and that's starting to build, approaching $6,000. But the big story is the final pick 5 of the day.
Oh, this is a nice carryover, man. $34,000. I wondered, and we've had the races have been so tough, so competitive, and at times we've seen horses essentially blow up the tote board at big prices. We've had a number of late pick 5 carryovers in the first 4.5 weeks of this fall meet at GPW. We have not had one on a weekday that has approached what it is today, $34,000. And when you combine that with Breeders' Cup Friday, and you would think the volume of players and the amount of money just in circulation today is more than your average Friday, I think we're going to be gunning for a very big pool when it's all said and done.
Well, the other day we had about a $15,000, $16,000 carryover, and they bet over $100,000 into it. So it's going to be way over that this afternoon. And boy, have your handicap and hats on, because these races at Gulfstream Park West have been awful tough over the last few days.
Just one winning favorite on the program yesterday. Chalks went just 1 for 9. We saw a couple of odds-on favorites. lose some tight, close ones. We'll see what this 10-race Friday, Breeders' Cup Friday, has in store on this November 3rd. And it all begins with that early pick 5 in race number 1. And we start things out with a fairly competitive turf sprint. I saw fit to use 3. I picked Clement's horse on top, Christophe Clement's, 2 Exagerous on top, but I can't single him by any stretch of the imagination, and I preferred using the 3 Rangers Coming, who 5/8, it worries me with his lack of speed, but he ran well at this distance, 2 back. And Ronnie's top pick, the number 5, GQ Cover Up. He might be, even though he's turning back, the fastest in here.
He's the fastest in here. Comes out of a really nice race. Currently very, very early in the wagering up there, 2-1. I think Clement will probably end up being the favorite when the smoke clears in race number 1 today.
And no one's really distinguished themselves. The 2-year-old maiden claimers in race number 2. A fairly modest group going in sees me using 3, and unless one of the firsters can run a little bit, I just sided with horses that have experience. I'm going to stand alone with Gustavo Delgado and the One Family Justice in race 3. I have just seen over the last couple of weeks his horses running far better than they have all year long here in Florida, and it's just one of those things. Trainer starts to get hot, all the horses seem to run well, and I'm hoping that's the case with Family Justice as he meets a few familiar rivals. 3-horse spread in race number 4, it's all about, and I feel pretty comfortable saying, in a way, Ronnie, Charlie's Secret might be the biggest wild card on the entire program because she has the back class to absolutely bury that field in the 4th.
Changing barns today, going into the Armando de la Cerda barn. Sammy Camacho in the saddle, horse I put on top. Poopsie Doopsie, another one you might use in there. And then last race, I think we're in total agreement with the 2, Close the Deal and Camilla's Princess.
And Close the Deal sticks out, at least as far as prior turf racing goes, like a sore thumb, and might be overbet because of it. But again, Ronnie and I have a couple of other ideas, including Oscar Gonzalez's drop down, second time starting drop down by Animal Kingdom. Now, it all begins in the 1st, and in the 2 Exagerous, the reasons I picked this horse on top, aside from the Clement factor, is this horse has never run this cheaply, even though he was pulled up back in late July at Saratoga and returned and did not run well for 40. I didn't think this would be a big sample, and that's why I didn't send it in, but Clement taking a 50% drop or more in claiming price over the last 5 years, and I figured it'd be a very, very tiny sample size. He's done it twice, and in both times he's come out on top. That's good enough for me with a horse who you're against, but he's never crossed the wire first, this horse.
Yeah, I just had to, you know, I wrote in red on my analysis today. I got to watch one from the 2 Pythagoras, whatever. I love the 5 in here. GQ Cover Up is turning back to 5 furlongs. Returned from a 7-week freshening to Dual for Lead. He finished 6th, but he finished 6th behind a repeat winner called Gray Dude. And Gray Dude came back and won the $40,000 Jack Flat across town at Gulfstream Park. That was going a mile. It was a 30 condition claimer on the Gulfstream turf. I want to show you stat on Reed Nagel. Route to sprint, all claiming levels on the turf. He's 5 for 20, 25%. He's in the money half the time, and he's got a positive return of investment, $3.74. And that's why I'm going with the 5 GQ Cover Up. If the 2 beats me, fine, but I'm going to see if I can beat this horse this afternoon.
And you might have, even though GQ Cover Up is turning back in distance, he lands in a race where, quite frankly, there's a dearth of early speed on paper, and he might play out as the one to catch. And if that happens, we'll see if anybody, and that might be a trend and a theme worthwhile to keep tabs on throughout the day, because coming off a Thursday card in which a number of short prices crumbled, we saw horses really, for whatever the reason, having a tough time making up ground on a consistent basis on the grass.
Well, we've seen over the last 4 or 5, 6 days, racing days, not in a row, that speed has been pretty good on the turf course here at Gulfstream Park West. So something to keep an eye on. It's a good way to start it right in the early going. Going to try and beat the 2 in race number 1.
All right, race number 2, as we hit the main, we'll bring on the 2-year-old $25,000 maiden claimers. Field of 6 set to go. You're either in the camp, in a way, of your top pick, the 3 McManaman, and the 6 JoJo Spensive, who come out of the same race, a pretty slow affair, and off the turfer on October 18th. I picked the number 2 Crest of Eden because this horse's lone dry dirt race came against much better maiden claimers on the dirt, and to be blunt about it, is not coming out of that race on October 18th, which I'm just not that fond of.
And, you know, the late equipment change note on there, that horse is going to wear blinkers this afternoon, Crest of Eden, so I think that's going to help that horse. But I did go with the 3 McMahon, who finds the perfect spot, I think, to step up to this level, because I don't see anybody here that ran well enough last time to be afraid of. After returning from a layoff with blinkers added, went up, set the pace, finished third. That was a 16 maiden test at the distance. I just thought of that, but you were right when you were showing in your early pick 5 ticket. Just a tough group of 2-year-olds that no one jumps off the pace at you. So if 2 Crest of Eden won, I wouldn't be shocked if the 3 won, or if the 6 won, JoJo Spencer.
And don't forget, you've got then the other half of the field, 3 first-time starters. As far as purchase prices or pedigrees, there's nothing that's really going to strike you as, oh, wow, I really want this horse. But again, a firster, no doubt, could win race number 2, as the ones that already have run obviously haven't been all that fast. Race number 3 on the afternoon, this November 3rd card continues, and we basically just alternate back to the turf, one race after another, and we go a mile and a 16th on the green with this $10,000 maiden claimer. It really is, at least to me, about the rematch, and you seem to agree, Ronnie, in the sense of in picking Dino Dude on top. Whole big contingent come out of the 9th race here at GPW on October 20th. Now, Family Justice, and we'll show you the race. Family Justice had a very, very good trip. Dino Dude, who we've got highlighted here, probably ran the best race out of everybody. Oh, is this telestrator frozen on me? Let's see, clear. All right, we got Dino Dude here, boom, and then we have got in the back, this is Seeking Fast, who was so far back. My top pick, Family Justice, is the gray horse right here. And we'll roll the tape, guys, and who'd you think ran the best race? Was it Dino Dude?
Well, what I liked about Dino Dude, he was solid in defeat. But you know why? Because he responded that day to the addition of blinkers by setting the pace and finishing second here, as you mentioned, at this level and distance. Larry Pilati keeps it light. He's got Abby Medina. I'm seeing speed winning all the time, so I went with the speed play here in race number 3. That's why I got Dino Dude on top.
And there is the number 5 horse on the outside. That was Seeking Fast, who closed and just had too little, too late, and was gaining fast. But again, looking at that race, and I know Family Justice had basically about as good a ride as you could get from Carlos Montalvo. Sat inside, saved ground, angled out, really had no punch late. But over the last week or so, week and change, this barn, Gustavo Delgado's horses are just running lights out. And I think it's a case of, and I've been a firm believer, when things start to click, they really seem to click throughout the barn. I think horses can pick up on the positive vibes and the confidence throughout the shed row. That's good enough for me in the third.
Well, I hope you're right, because that barn was really, really struggling during our summer campaign. So we'll see.
Yeah.
You know, and his horses have been running fantastically. You're absolutely right.
All right, moving on to race number 4. As noted earlier in my early pick 5 analysis, feel this race might just have the biggest wild card on Friday's program, and that is the number 2, Charlie Secret, who, what do you do with a horse who, if she runs back to her better races in June, July, and May, she will bury this field. But in hindsight, running 2 weeks ago, it did feel like, and she didn't run all that great at 3 to 5. It felt like her connections were dropping her into the bottom to hopefully win and get claimed. The win didn't happen, but she was picked up out of that race.
That was my thought process. This one moving to the Armando de la Cerda barn, a barn I really respect. After that claim, turns back to 3/4 of a mile. And I think this is going to help after returning from that layoff. Duel for the lead, finished second, going 6.5. I like this horse better at 6 furlongs. And I just think the barn, Sammy Camacho and Armando de la Cerda, I just think this horse has a chance to rebound. Now, we always say this, would I single a horse like this, even on it looks like the one to beat on paper? No.
Now, that horse coming out of a third, the rail runner, Poopsie Doopsie, coming out of a victory. She handled a wet track, and a race will bring you from back on October 21st. This was first off the claim for Franco Calabrese and trainer Angel Rodriguez, and she took dirt. She had a very good trip, but took all that kickback, and this was sort of classic Jose Valdivia Jr., the way he's been riding over the last couple of years. Stayed on the rail, slipped through inside, and she kicked clear for the victory. This does appear, and she's a major player any way you slice it, but it does seem like there's more firepower in this race due to my top pick, Riverina, and your top pick, Charlie Secret.
Yeah, and this horse just got the ideal trip, and you saw that it was a sealed, sloppy track, so it got to prove that it could run as well, right? You know, and the barn is known to do well with this type of horses. But I got it on the ticket, believe me, in second. But I went with Charlie's Secret. I just think because of the fast track and the turn back to 3/4 mile. But I do like your horse in here, Riverina, hoping to show more. Her second trip over this surface.
And that's fine because she's based at GPW and she's going out for a barn that's had a good week. And a good week at some decent prices. It was back on Wednesday, just 2 days ago. Antonio Sano won a couple of races at Gulfstream Park West, paying about $20 with both upset winners. She's in pretty good form right now. I think she meets an easier field as she gets away from the informed Moonlight Salsa and a square to spare. And I like the post in this field of 5 breaking from the outside. Speaking of 5, it's on to race number 5 after a little breather. It's all about the Rainbow Six and that late pick 5 carryover when we come back.
At ExpressBet, we celebrate the champions that make horse racing great. That's why we provide more ways to bet from more places than ever. We've built an entire family of brands to give players more of the rewards they deserve, give bettors the information they need to win, and provide a community for horse bettors. Because the best way to support the champions of horse racing is to champion horse racing. ExpressBet, we are racing.
The Pegasus World Cup Invitational is January 27th at Gulfstream Park, and that weekend we have something new, the Pegasus World Cup Betting Championship. I'm lucky to be joined enough by 2 guys who will be playing in this tournament, including
Ray Arsenault, defending NEC champion.
And
Hi, Acacia. I'm Ross Gallo. I'm a 13-time NHC qualifier and also a member of the NTRA Players Committee.
we're so excited for it. Join us here at Gulfstream Park. $500,000 expected pool, no entry fee if played on site. This is for the players.
And a very big Gulfstream West salute to a number of the players betting today and tomorrow over at Gulfstream Park in the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge, including a defending NHC winner, Ray Arsenault, who, if he wins the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge and he chose to play at the satellite track of Gulfstream Park, if he wins, he's in line for a $3 million bonus. Nice little payday.
And what a great place to spend it with the weather like this. You might as well be in South Florida.
Absolutely. Beautiful weather again, fast and firm as we get on to the opening leg of the Rainbow Six in race number 5. About 6 G's, give or take, in the carryover. And how much we spending?
$28.80, and we do have a single this afternoon, and it comes in race number 9, and it's the 2 Swagger Jagger. This one a perfect 2 for 2 on the course, but I got to tell you, it was in 2015, but it is Mike Maker, so I singled there with Swagger Jag, and you see the rest of the progression, and I went 3 deep in here with the 2, 3, and 7, and I think maybe in the 5th race, Close the Deal is the logical choice, even though this one is dropping a little bit after that maiden special weight performance last time it ran.
All right, Ronnie, 28.80, a nice 4-horse spread, capping things in race number 10, and there's plenty of turf to go around. Second half of this card here at GPW as we begin, and it really is, I guess, the centerpiece, to be fair, in this 2-year-old filly. 50K maiden claimer at 7.5 furlongs on the turf by virtue of having a chance to run on the turf and running respectably well in relative terms. It's a race that centers around our top pick, the number 2, Close the Deal. Didn't run all that great, but still, that effort might be good enough to dispose of this maiden claiming.
And as I mentioned, dropping to the $50,000 level, stretching out around 2 turns, stalked the action, finished 3rd in her 5-furlong maiden special weight debut across town at Gulfstream. Dave Fawkes, as Marco Meneses handling that combination drop down and stretch out in distance. I thought it was the logical one. And I see you have the 3 in second, Camilla Princess, daughter of Animal Kingdom. That was my thought process with the 3.
It was with me as well, and she took some nibbles first out. Obviously didn't run all that great on the dirt in special weight company, but I do like this barn quite a bit. And this is a barn in which I intend to hopefully make a couple of nice big price scores once we get over to Gulfstream Park during the championship meet. I like the job Oscar Gonzalez does, and you certainly have got the Animal Kingdom influence, even though on the dam side there wasn't much immediate turf pedigree. Moving on to race number 6, it is 5 down and 5 to go on this live Friday edition of Gulfstream West Today. And moving on to maiden claimers in the opening leg of the late pick 5. We'll show you my play, and I didn't come up with a single in this opening leg, race number 6, Ronnie, but doesn't this look like a 2-horse race until the cows come home?
Yeah, 3 and 5 in here, and I actually did the same thing on my Rainbow Six. Gasparilla Trove, to me, is absolutely the one to beat, but I just kept looking back at No Dinero and wouldn't leave it off the ticket.
Now, the 8th race single of mine, I'm bullish on the 6, Mitos y Leyendas, even though to be honest about it, and we're always honest, he's a little inconsistent and he hasn't won on the year. I think he just meets a solid field for his standards, running for 8,000, and it looks like he's going to get a blazing pace to close into. So he is my single. I just think he gets the right race flow. I also used, and Swagger Jagger for Mike Maker is definitely the one to beat in race 9, but I also wanted the Rohan Crichton drop down, the number 3 Orpheus, who at least in this country is a definite new face running for 25.
Running for 25, and I did not use that one on my ticket as you saw a single, but we got the logical 3 in the last race.
Yep.
I added the 8. I thought the 8, a little bit of a long shot in there that might be able to grab a share, but 2, 3, and 7, I think is how you handle the 10th race today.
Now, this is a tough game. No matter what your skin in the game is, it's the greatest game played outdoors, but it's tough at that. And, you know, that old saying, there's 1,000,001 ways to lose a horse race. Everybody with the race we're going to show you right now at Gasper-Latrobe was okay. But if you missed this race back on October 20th, this is what happened to Gasper-Latrobe. This was one of the oddest things I've ever seen, seemingly drawing off to win at 7/8. I'm not sure what happened, if this horse just shied in, shied away from the stick. Pedro Monterrey Jr. just kind of lost his balance, and Pedro popped up. Thankfully, nobody hit him. The horse was fine. Does Gasper-Latrobe make amends for snatching defeat from the jaws of victory? I see you got a big smile on your face. One of those things, again, we would never show anything like that if somebody was hurt, but Pedro was fine. Obviously, Gasper-Latrobe was fine. You went back to him today.
I went back to him today, and I mean, he was home, free.
Home.
That's the way. It was
He's
home.
got that race sealed, signed, delivered.
And every once in a while, that's why I had the smile on my face, and you're absolutely right. But David Fawkes puts Jose Batista on this afternoon. Can make a little bit of a jockey change there. And you made the great point. No one got hurt, we wouldn't even be smiling or laughing about this. So Gasper-Latrobe can give one more chance. But you're right about No Dinero. This one is dropping to the $10,000 level. Hoping to get the money today after stalking the pace. He finished 3rd in back-to-back sprints at the 20 level. Prentice Abbey Medina. Gasper-Latrobe, I don't know. I had to use No Dinero.
You have to, because you know what? If No Dinero had been running, I think, recently for 10 and had been losing recently and was still eligible, obviously, for a maiden claiming race, then you might really say, you know what, I just want Gasper-Latrobe. But the fact that Gasper-Latrobe, to me, has already lost a few times, running well, but has been beaten for 10, and No Dinero hasn't, good enough reason to use both and basically turn it into a 2-horse affair. Moving on, race number 7 today, 7.5 furlongs, 3 and a filly and mare, 2 lifetime claimers, and we're running, or we will start running into a number of cards in the very near future where there might be some bias playbacks from this turf course that has been, at times, so heavily tilted towards early speed. That was my intention in looking at this race over the dark days. Now, judging from the turf course yesterday, these horses might have another check mark if they can't gain any ground on this turf course. But that was my feeling in taking the one Taco Wayne shot. Got a great trip and saved ground and just pulled the right kind of turf trip you'd want to get, but ultimately could not reel in the wire-to-wire upset winner, make big money. I'm just going to say this horse was compromised last time. Give me a little Taco Wayne from the rail.
Well, she finished 2nd, going a mile in the 16th and a mile respectively over the local sod, so she's sort of stuck in 2nd gear. Let's put her in 2nd. We got our exacta flip-flop. I went with little baby Bella, hoping to get back to the winner's circle. She followed her $10,000 maiden victory here. I thought she ran well. Well meant 2nd, has the favorite at this level and distance last time out. It's another race where I think these are the logical 2 shots in here, but I found that the number 2 you have in 4th, Promiscuous Force, has the best last race buyer if you're a buyer aficionado, but it was a 75 condition claimer up at Delaware. That is the guesswork in this race.
And I'm glad you brought up Promiscuous Force, because I think you could make a real concrete argument. The scratch of the 3, Silver Magic, may really move up Promiscuous Force in terms of the early speed department. And this horse might be able to shake loose early.
Yeah, when I wrote with the number 3 horse that scratched out here in my analysis, I just wrote cheap speed. I just thought the horse would go to the front and maybe set it up for somebody. And now with that horse out, you might be right. It might set up for a horse like that. And I didn't mean to be mean by saying cheap speed.
No.
What I meant by that, the horse is going to go, really doesn't hang on that all.
Absolutely. And Promiscuous Force is not the quote-unquote cheap speed. This horse has some races in the past on the turf, be it Tampa or even up in the Mid-Atlantic, that make him, if he gets brave and feels like running, he could lead these start to finish, especially when you consider this is a turf course that has been heavily at times tilted towards wire-to-wire speed. Race number 8 on the program, folks, a final dirt affair on this Breeders' Cup Friday. And just keep in mind, we are set to wrap up a little before 6 p.m. at Gulfstream Park West. The first Breeders' Cup race, which is the Juvenile Turf Fillies, won't be run until about 5:30. So we'll basically be done here at Gulfstream West once these Friday races, Breeders' Cup Light as I like to call it, start to get into gear. And for you, Ronnie, the 8th race, you're with the likely favorite. And if he doesn't need a race to Pan's advantage off the layoff, he might just be the fastest horse in here.
Yeah, he's making his first starts and posting some pretty lofty speed figures when facing this caliber of competition. He was up at Tampa during January and February. I want to show you a stat on trainer Gerald Bennett, a layoff of 180-day plus in dirt sprints. He's 7 for 38. That's 18%. He's in the money 58% of the time, and $1.22 ROI. And Gerald Bennett, an excellent conditioner, owns Tampa Bay Downs in the wintertime with this. Just these type of horses. Hasn't been that way recently here in South Florida, but this one, as you mentioned, might need a race. So I think Mitos Liliendas, who you have as your single in here, I think is a tough horse, 10-time winner.
He's a 10-time winner who, speaking of winning, doesn't have any wins to show. He does not have a win photo dated 2017. That is a little bit of a concern. But he's run well enough, even with that inconsistency in the win department, for me to give him the vote of confidence here. And sealing the deal is the fact that, all right, you got a Gerald Bennett horse with speed who has not run since February 19th. Might just be the best horse in the race, but nonetheless hasn't been out in a long time. I don't see this race not having a fast pace with the Sun Win on the rail, Toppin's advantage, Dreaming of Joey, On Your Mark. They're going to be running and gunning, and the race flow, I felt, would just really fall right into the lap of Mitos Liliendas.
I'm looking at your selections here, and you see the horse I have in 4th. And boy, I struggle to put this horse in 4th, the Sun Win. This one's the morning line favorite. I just didn't. I just didn't think that dropping way down today, but I just didn't have confidence that this horse might need a race. I just wanted to point that out.
I'm glad
everybody
you did. It's a huge drop, but boy, oh boy, it seems like his form, albeit against better, has really just taken a 180. Claim for $25K right around Florida Derby weekend, and lo and behold, he's in for $8,000 today. Moving on to race number 9 on the program. We've got a couple of turf races to bring you, and both solid races nonetheless. 3 and up, $25K turf claimers set to go. Long time between drinks, talking about a horse like Mitos Liliendas, who I have on top in the 8th, who's 0 for 8 in 2017. You have got to go back to late November, basically Thanksgiving weekend of 2015 for the last victory of the number 2 Swagger Jagger. But lo and behold, that was a race run at Gulfstream Park West. The boys upstairs have got Swagger Jagger highlighted, and this Florida bred who's making bit of a homecoming here, returning to the great state of Florida, will be starting for Mike Baker.
This one was the Pulpit Stakes, right?
The Pulpit, yeah.
Pulpit Stakes, yeah. And this horse ran exceptionally well. As I mentioned, he's perfect 2 for 2 on this course, albeit in 2015. But I got a stat that I love because it's Mike Baker, and he starts 40,000 horses, it seems, a year.
Yep.
So as you could see how game this horse was. Second start after a layoff in mid-level claimers on the turf. He's 34 for 96. That's 35% win average. In the money 59% of the time, and still a positive return of investment. Just saying 96, doing this one thing is amazing to me.
He is one of the preeminent turf trainers in all of the land. He is such a good guy as far as training goes, good guy in general. I really like Mike quite a bit, and it's good to see his presence increasing by the day here. He's got a number of starters lined up today, tomorrow, through Sunday at GPW. Orpheus was sort of the fuzzy for me, who I thought would give you his best race in the United States, dropping in for $25K. As we wrap things up, and there's plenty of turf to go around again late in the card, And a number of these fillies, in fact, this is a really hard race, this Florida-bred 3-and-up filly mare allowance optional claimer. The 7 Grace Appeal is one of a few live runners on the program today, Ronnie, for Armando de la Cerda. You would pick that barn back in the 3rd with Charlie Secret. We will show you Grace Appeal's win back on May the 11th. And I gave her some extra points for this victory because this 5/8 on the turf is such a specialized niche type distance and specialty. And she was able to cut back on May the 11th from a mile to win going 5/8 and beat a good field in the process. She hasn't been out in about 23 weeks, and she's going out, to be fair, for a barn that's been on the cold side here at GPW.
Well, she's tried this distance 3 times and won every time she's tried it. She's a perfect 3 for 3. Under De La Cerda, Jose Batista had a fantastic day yesterday, and I just think this is the horse to beat in the nightcap. But as you saw my ticket earlier, I went 4 deep in here. I've used the 8, and I'm glad you used the 8, and I think that might be the sneaky in the race, in this particular race. So I don't know what is on the morning line, 8 or 12 to 1 or something like that.
Right, her last turf race, a narrow 6 between Bitacora, and she looked like she might clunk along and get a piece of this going 5/8, whereas Ralph Nix has Mojo's Queen coming down from New York. She's a major player, and Ralph Zadie, who seems to have just a ton of turf sprinters in his barn, has got the 3R Sweet Exchange, who's a pretty sweet racehorse. She hits pretty hard.
Yeah, let's show you a quick stat before we finish here. Winner last time out, this is for Ralph Zadie, turf sprinters. He's 21%, 6 for 28. He's in the money about 46% of the time, and a positive return of investment. But that you just know how well they do with turf sprinters, this barn.
Oh, a ton. Up and down the shed row at our Sweet Exchange, looking to battle in race number 10, as is our man up in the sky, the one and only Pete Aiello. He's coming up next with your Breeders' Cup Friday scratches and changes here at Gulfstream West, and then it's Ronnie and I with you all day.